You know, when you hear the word Roswell, a certain story probably pops in your head, right? A crash saucer, alien bodies, a huge government cover up. It's a legend that's basically part of our cultural DNA. But what if the real story is way more complicated? What if the secret they were trying to protect wasn't extraterrestrial at all, but something deeply and disturbingly human? And look, this wasn't some supermarket tabloid. On July 8th, 1947, this was the actual headline, right there on the front page of the local paper. And the source for this unbelievable claim? Well, it wasn't some random person. It was an official press release from the Roswell Army Airfield itself. So for a few incredible hours, the world actually thought the military had captured a UFO. So, let's set the scene. It all started out in the high desert of New Mexico. A local rancher, a guy named W. Mac Brazel, stumbles upon a field just littered with this strange debris. We're talking about wreckage that was totally unfamiliar to him. These super lightweight metal beams, a tough material that felt kind of like parchment, and all these strange foils. He did what you're supposed to do, he reported it, and the military swooped in and secured the site, fast. And this wasn't just a rumor. The confirmation, the one that led to that headline, it came straight from Major Jesse Marcel, an intelligence officer at the Roswell base. He was the guy they sent to investigate the debris field, and he was the one quoted confirming that this stuff was, well, otherworldly. This was an official, on-the-record statement from military intelligence. The whole flying disc story, it was born inside the very institution that would, very soon, deny its existence. And this is where the real mystery kicks off. Because just as fast as the story exploded, the military slammed on the brakes. Hard. What happened next was one of the most sudden and public reversals in U.S. military history. I mean, just look at this. The whole contradiction is laid bare in a single day. In the morning, it's a captured flying saucer. By the afternoon, the commanding general down in Fort Worth is holding a press conference, showing off some generic balloon scraps, and dismissing the whole thing as a simple weather balloon. That immediate whiplash-inducing reversal is the very engine that has powered the Roswell conspiracy theory for decades. It really is the central question, isn't it? Why would you announce something so massive, so world-changing, only to take it back hours later with an explanation that feels, well, almost comically simple? Was it a genuine mistake, or was this the very first step in a deliberate, decades-long cover-up? So, for years, the weather balloon was the official story. Then, decades later, the US government came forward with a new explanation, one that was a lot more complex and pointed to a classified program that, you have to admit, gives a pretty compelling reason for all the secrecy. So, meet Project Mogul. This was some serious Cold War spycraft. The US was launching these enormous chains of high-altitude balloons with super-sensitive microphones attached. The goal? To try and listen for the sound waves of a Soviet nuclear test thousands of miles away. And the materials they used, special foils to reflect radar, reinforced plastics, this was brand new tech for 1947. You can see how a civilian could easily mistake it for something not from this world. And you can see why they'd want to keep that under wraps, right? Revealing Project Mogul would have tipped off the Soviets to a major American intelligence operation. So the weather balloon story, in this light, starts to look like a plausible lie, a cover story to protect a vital national secret. But for a lot of people who've looked into this, that explanation still leaves way too many questions unanswered. To really get what was happening at Roswell, you have to understand the place, and you have to understand the time. The New Mexico desert in 1947 wasn't just a bunch of empty land. No, it was the absolute nerve center of America's most paranoid and secretive military machine. Records show that this whole region was just a hotbed of top-secret projects. This is where we built and tested the first atomic bomb. It's where America was developing its first rockets with captured German scientists. Secrecy wasn't just a policy out there, it was a way of life. Anything unusual crashing in this area would have triggered an immediate, no questions asked, total lockdown. And this is where the story shifts, moving away from spy balloons and into something much more unsettling. Because the secrecy of that era, it wasn't just about protecting weapons. It was also used to hide some deeply unethical actions. You have to remember, at the exact same time Project Mogul was flying overhead, the US government was also involved in secret programs using human subjects, often completely without their knowledge or consent. This history sets a pretty troubling precedent, right? It shows a willingness to hide things from the American public for national security reasons that went way beyond just military hardware. So this just reframes the whole thing. What if the legend of a crashed alien ship wasn't the secret they were trying to hide? What if it was the tool of the cover-up? A kind of controlled story meant to make everyone look up at the stars, to distract us from a crash that involved a much grimmer, more earthly secret, maybe one involving human test subjects in some kind of experimental craft. Even today, after all the official reports and declassified documents, the story has never fully settled down. Key pieces of the puzzle are still just missing. And that suggests that the official explanation, whether you believe it's a weather balloon or Project Mogul, is still not the whole story. When you dig into the records, a really troubling pattern starts to emerge. You find reports of first-hand witnesses being threatened into silence by military personnel. You find that crucial administrative files from the Roswell base from that exact time period have just vanished. And the official documents we do get through Freedom of Information requests, they're often covered in black ink with key details redacted. This just doesn't look like the aftermath of a simple balloon crash. And that leaves us with this final, haunting question. The hard evidence for an alien crash has always been anecdotal, but the evidence for a multi-decade intense government cover-up, that is substantial. So if the secret isn't little green men, what earthly truth could possibly be so damning that it requires nearly a century of misdirection, of redactions, and of silence? What are they still hiding?